You're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. It's more fun to believe. Third year bonus.
And here we go. We're off and running. Can you believe that it's two third-year bonuses in 1 week? Excuse this noise. And okay, I've straightened the microphone. Hello, my name is Ryan Singer. Welcome to Me and Paranormal You. This is a third-year bonus where I will discuss all of the paranormal and strange things happening in my mind and my thought process as of late. I will probably read from Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. The Pentagon? Skinwalker? I'm going to read from Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. And then don't make me go to the store again because I'm going to read from Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. We're already off the rails. Is that a new record for going off the rails at the Pentagon? Oh, golly. If you don't know me, I'm a stand-up comedian. Comedy, if you don't have your sense of humor about everything, then, what are you even? You're an asshole. There, I said it. Myself included. If we don't keep our sense of humor about the things that we believe, we come off as, let's just say, unlikable at the very least. And nobody wants to be unlikable at the Pentagon. Skinwalkers at the Pentagon by James T. Lukatsky, Colm Kelleher, and George Knapp. It's an insider's account of the secret government UFO program. So it is the disclosure program from, it's the government's disclosure program. I mean, there's people on the inside of the government who want people to know the truth. That's just the way it is. People are different. People have varying opinions about the future and things like that. Anyway, I can't believe we're doing 2 30-year bonuses in 1 week. What is even real? The sun is still up. I put up these are a day late, but they're not a dollar short. They are a little bit late, but it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. I am done with fits. I am doing Gaussian blur. If you don't know what a Gaussian blur is, watch any documentary movie. And when you're watching someone be interviewed, they're usually sitting down, right, in a beautiful setting or something like that, right? And you'll notice the background is slightly blurred to bring the person more into focus in your eyes without even realizing it, right? It is a painstaking process when your subject is moving around as they're talking, because you have to build a mask and then move this mask around with the person frame by frame. That's where I'm at right now on the Fitz documentary, Friends in the Sky. And I got to tell you, it's like the final phase for me practically. And so it's done, essentially. I'm about 1/5 of the way through the Gaussian blurring. So everything's a Gaussian blur. Bring it to the forefront. Let me see it clearly. Everything's a Gaussian blur. The new iPhones, I think a handful of years ago, started doing this feature. I am juiced and I am jacked. Why? Because I went to the Fitness Planet, where exercised in my own way. I have my own regimen. Anyway, it's me just taking selfies in the bathroom mirror that I'll never send to anyone. That's not true. I want you to know that is not true. That's total fabrication. The men's bathroom has been closed for the better part of a year at the Planet Fitness in Miamisburg, Ohio, because that's just life, I guess. So, hope you don't have to go pee or poo-poo while you're there. So, I think that's probably why I'm so jazzed up, because I've got all this, exercise energy. I don't know. And I'm excited because this project's almost finished for me. And then I'm also, there's other things I'll be doing in the future with it. And then I'm on the road to Louisville. I'll be in Louisville tomorrow night, Louisville, Kentucky, performing at Planet of the Tapes at 8 o'clock. I think it's 8 o'clock. And then I'll be on The Late Show, too. They're doing this show called Late Breakfast. It's such a fun show. It's a wild, crazy, variety show. I've done it in the past multiple times, and I'll be doing it again. And it just so happens to be in town, traveling, and So I'm going to jump on that show as well. And then I'll be in Asheville on Sunday at the Catawba Brewing Company. I love Asheville. I hope to see you there. We had a really fun show there last year. And then also had a really fun show in Wilmington, North Carolina last year. I got to see my buddy Samantha Faye. Hopefully I'll be able to see her and her new fiance this time as well. They were just dating last time. Gosh, life, the cycles of life. Was it because they came to a Ryan Singer comedy show that they decided, you know what, let's take the next big step in our relationship? You should come with your significant other to one of my stand-up comedy shows. And I'll tell you what, you'll probably just fall deeper in love with each other, understanding that you don't have the problems that I have in my life. No, I'm just kidding. There's actually some serious stuff I wanted to discuss here, believe it or not. Believe it. Okay, now I am electrified in my mind right now. This is going to be difficult for me. Good thing I have sent Nigel on vacation. Nigel is, I don't know, in parts unknown, vacationing. So I'm in control. No one's here to restrain me from the freedom of my thoughts, words, and creativity on this podcast because the producer and editor, Nigel, is on vacation, like I said, in parts unknown. So, no, I will not allow for him to zoom in during these times. God, I'd love to do a poll. How many people love Nigel and how many people think Nigel's too hard on me? I'd love to do a poll. Maybe you can comment on this. I'm going to read from chapter 9, page 80, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon by Lukatsky, Kelleher, and Knapp. I read this because a friend of mine had sent me photos of certain pages of this book within the last 24 hours as a friendly reminder about when we will be at their home later this year. I think those of you who listen to the program are aware of the Florida situation. So it starts off with our old friend. Wouldn't you know it? Wouldn't you know it? And by old friend, we're not friends. I'm not friends with this person, but it is someone who's clearly a CIA agent. Travis Taylor, Dr. Travis Taylor from the TV show The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. He works for, it's either the CIA, he's worked for the CIA, the DIA, the NSA, whoever it is. I mean, there's just no, if you look at, what's interesting too, if you look at, it's back, it's in UFO of God by Chris Bledsoe. There's pictures and there's somebody else named, it's like Timothy Taylor or something. And I swear to God, they look like brothers. And he's like a former NASA, CIA guy or something, right? It's everybody on that show's, they're a government operative, man. No, anyway, Travis Taylor 100% is, a government guy. 100%. So it starts off with a quote from the government spy, Dr. Travis Taylor. I am totally speaking out of school, and by that I mean I don't know what I'm talking about. So just keep that in mind. It just seems likely, though, right? I mean, I would bet $1 million on it if I had $1 million. Anyway, so here we go. Chapter 9, Bringing Something Home. The Infectious Agent Model. And this is a quote from Dr. Travis Taylor from Secret Skinwalker Ranch. We don't like to talk about the hitchhiker too much because everybody's afraid it's going to trigger it or something. I have several colleagues that were putting instruments out to measure things at their house as well as at the ranch. And we're measuring simultaneous events occurring at both places. That may be 1,000 miles apart. So, okay. And then, onto the chapter here. Most people who spent more than a day on Skinwalker Ranch brought, quote, something, end quote, home with them from the property. The effect was almost universal and universally unpleasant. Even during the NIDS days when Kelleher and Eric Davis spent literally hundreds of days on night watches on Skinwalker Ranch from 1996 to 1999. Their wives would occasionally remark waking up at night and seeing, quote, people, end quote, in their bedrooms, or black shadows walking through the house. These post-ranch events were noticeable but mild during the NIDS years, but they escalated dramatically with the ASOP and BASS program at the ranch in 2009. All 5 actively serving intelligence agency personnel who visited the ranch during the ASOP BASS program experienced profound anomalies while on the property. And even more importantly, all 5 brought something home with them. John Axelrod and his family are the poster children for the eruption of anomalies in the home following trips to Skinwalker Ranch. That's covered in Chapter 1. For more than a dozen years following his July 2009 and subsequent trips to the ranch, Axelrod's wife and then teenage children were subjected to nightmarish dogmen appearing in their backyard, to blue, red, yellow, and white orbs routinely floating through the home and in the yard, to black shadow people standing over their beds when they awoke, and to a relentless barrage of loud, unexplained footsteps walking up and down the stairs in their house. What was once a normal middle-class home in suburban Virginia became an inferno of bizarre, unexplained phenomena. And Axelrod and his family were certain that the trigger for this transformation was his first trip to Skinwalker Ranch. It is indeed lucky that the Axelrod family was, and is, extremely stable, psychologically well-adjusted and grounded and prone to matter-of-fact reactions to these events. In vivid contrast to the reaction of the Axelrod family is the reaction of Juliet Witt and her then roommate to the intense poltergeist activity that erupted in their home following her 2-day visit to Skinwalker Ranch in August 2009. So is he implying that she's not psychologically fit or well-adjusted and grounded or stable? Basically, in contrast here, they are implying that Juliet Witt is unstable, psychologically maladjusted, and not grounded, and actually prone to the opposite of matter-of-fact reactions to events like this, which would be, I don't know, should we say hysterical? Oh gosh, I guess women have never been called hysterical throughout history, have they? SMDH. Okay, so anyway, let's get back. We're trying not to judge too harshly here. In vivid contrast to the reaction of the Axelrod family is the reaction of Juliet Witt and her then roommate to the intense poltergeist activity that erupted in their home following her 2-day visit to Skinwalker Ranch in August 2009. That's covered in Chapter 6. I'm getting my phone is blowing up because I think someone's trying to buy eBay stuff off of me. Sorry, I didn't silence my phone. I sell baseball cards on eBay. I think some people know that. Other people may not. Anyway, you can find me on eBay at Rising. Let's get back to the paranormal. The sudden eruption of poltergeist activity during which 2 wine bottles were flung across the room, ceiling fans would turn on, TVs turn off on their own, lights going off or flickering, books showing up piled at the base of the stairs, clothing moved and laid out on the daughter's bedroom floor with no one else in her house, has continued to this day. The paranormal intrusion into Witt's house originally caused a severe emotional reaction in her roommate and provoked the young man to leave the house. This emotional outcome of a Skinwalker transmission event was a warning to other military personnel who were contemplating spending time on the ranch. Health effects. The health effects of bringing something home were immediately apparent when Jim Costigan and his wife Layla experienced a very close encounter with a blue orb in their quiet Maryland neighborhood in September 2009. That's covered in the previous chapter. Her upper arm was briefly grazed by a low-flying blue orb as it flew past her and disappeared into the neighborhood. Almost immediately, Layla became ill and experienced a constellation of unusual symptoms before being eventually diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, an autoimmune disease in which the immune system attacks the thyroid gland. The Axelrod family also suffered health effects, with the wife suffering flare-ups of systemic lupus erythematosus, and Raynaud's disease. Both Axelrod teenagers also suffered intense flu-like symptoms at different times following anomalies in their home, with the most serious medical symptoms occurring in the younger teenager after being attacked on the night of February 7th, 2011, by blue and red orbs in his bedroom. Without breaking medical confidentiality and HIPAA, it can be unequivocally stated that a large number of people who brought something home from Skinwalker Ranch also began to experience autoimmune disease in one or more family or household members. These autoimmune diseases included Graves' disease. How do you say that one? I think that's Sjogren's disease, salivary and tear glands, Hashimoto thyroiditis, rheumatoid arthritis, and lupus, because of medical confidentiality issues and the need to observe HIPAA requirements, and secondly, because the numbers are too low to evaluate cause and effect significance. There will be no more discussion of the autoimmune effects in these families. Okay, so what we should talk about is, first of all, this is kind of dire. It's a little bit dark. It's dire. It doesn't inspire confidence to spend a lot of time investigating, paranormal hotspots or locations where there seems to be a ton of activity. Is it akin to radiation poison? Being exposed to too much paranormal of an intense variety can be bad for your health. There seems to be what's the word I'm looking for they use in like courts and stuff, circumstantial evidence for such a thing. Do I have any experiences of this firsthand? It's a good question. And other than the psychological effects and the detriment to my, mental health that I experienced in 2019, you can go back and listen to that. That is Encounter with a Sasquatch. I believe it's 30 or bonus. Gosh, I should know the number. You can go back. There's no paywall. You can go back and listen to episodes as far back as, the very, very beginning, over 10 years ago. So Encounter with a Sasquatch, Ryan Singer, just Google that if you've never heard it. That is me doing a 30-year bonus, essentially, just kind of talking about my experience. Right after I got back to Los Angeles, pretty much. So I left. I couldn't get out of there fast enough, but I couldn't leave early. I couldn't drive back to my home quickly enough at that time. And then I, within a day or two, I believe, a couple days at least, I knew I needed to record an accounting of what I had just experienced. Oh my God. I mean, I can go back and I can think about that. I was in a hotel in somewhere west of Houston, Texas. And I had, there was a woman I had dated. We had broken up. We would eventually get back together and live together for a while. Anyway, there was no one in my life I was closer to. So I am terrified, unable to sleep in this hotel, and it's the only person I could call. Not a paranormal person, but she kind of talked me off a ledge. I'll never forget that. That's I'm much appreciative of that. There's the dulcet tones of the Me and Paranormal You dots, beautifully played by Alex Stein, former producer of the Mindcast. Not to be confused with Nigel, by the way. We're going to be right back. Oh, I want to let you know that you can The music disappeared, but it's not going to disappear. I'll fix the editing here. But you can be a patron to the Mindcast, to the podcast. For $3 a month, you'll never have to hear commercials, at least on this program, ever again, if you just listen to them over on Patreon. Patreon is sending out messages that the iOS app has decided to increase the fees if you use the iOS app to use Patreon. I would suggest you do it on your desktop. But I guess if you want to listen to them through your phone, God, I guess you're in a pickle because it's going to cost more money because Patreon's getting dinged by the iOS store. Apple is deciding to do that, and that's what's happening. So just a heads up on that. We're going to be right back with more about The Hitchhiker and other stuff. Welcome back to the program, and I suppose if you're a patron, we never really went anywhere because you don't have to deal with commercials. Thank you so much to the patrons. You can be a free patron, by the way. You don't have to pay for it. You can just go over there and kind of sniff around and see what's going on. I do post things for the free patrons every once in a while. Once a month, we will have an ad-free episode for the patrons who are, riding that free wave. And listen, I ain't mad at you. I'm a penny pincher. I just bought a car cooler last night. For $25, I bought a car cooler after 15 plus years of spending the majority of my life on the highways and byways of this beautiful country. I am shocked that it took me this long to get a car cooler. It's just a little 12-can job, right? I'm going to put some lunch meat, some cheese. I'm trying to eat healthy. This will be the only time I ever eat straight garbage, right? Straight garbage is fast food. Anything through a drive-through window, for the most part, is straight garbage, right? I used to eat that all the time. But the only time I ever eat it now is when I'm traveling because I'm always in a pinch. And I'll just drive for 14 hours and I'll be starving. And I'm like, I need food now. And you make bad decisions. So it sounds like a commercial for mattress.com. You can eat the mattresses now. Did you know that? Also, don't forget to wear a condom when you're eating your mattress. Be safe out there, kids. So I just bought this car cooler for the first time. I'm going to use it, bust it out tomorrow, and on my trip over here for the next week or so that I'm traveling on the road in my car. I can't wait. I'm saving money. I'm going to save so much money because I've already bought the groceries. I've already bought food, snacks, and some, these protein shake things that are good, like meal replacements when you're in a pinch. I like using those. So anyway, we're talking about the hitchhiker effect, and specifically, we were reading from, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. We can talk a little bit about one of the authors because he also had an experience. Let's just go to that. Page 83. James Lakatsky experienced a profound anomaly on the ranch in 2007, which was a significant instigation for the formation of the OSAP BASS program. And BASS, by the way, is BAASS. Lakatsky and his wife experienced a few, but not many, anomalies in their home in the years following his Skinwalker Ranch sighting, but DIA official Susanna Ash, who was hired at DWO in January 2011 in the office cubicle at DIA next to Lakatsky between February and June 2011, okay, that's a lot of garbage there, reported that on the night of February 6, 2011, the night before Lakatsky's February 7th briefing to the Department of Homeland Security, Eddie Ash, Susanna's brother, so this is the woman who's sitting next to him, in a cubicle next to him. Her brother, the night before Lakatsky's going to debrief the DHS, her brother, who previously had no experience whatsoever with anomalies, had an escalating series of close encounters with UAPs in rural Mocksville, North Carolina, that continued for months afterwards. Eddie's quiet country home suddenly had large orange UAPs hovering outside at night. Aerial photos of his house were sent to his mobile phone from unknown numbers, and his pet dog once disappeared through multiple locked doors while Eddie slept, only to have been found in the morning whimpering outside. Could Lukatsky have transmitted something to Susanna Ash, who subsequently passed it to her brother? Well, they go in more detail here, or at least, some thoughts on the infectious agent model. And, so I guess, my analogy or something like, is it radiation? Is it like being exposed to radiation, getting radiation poisoning? Well, what if that was infectious? What if you were to, it's almost like you had, I don't know, like let's say COVID or something, and like paranormal COVID. It's unsettling to think about that, for sure. Here's some interesting things. I know I teased earlier, I was like, am I going to get into the things, have I ever experienced this kind of stuff? I do think it's within the scope of my relationships and the information that is out there for me to tell you some of these things that I'm getting ready to divulge about other people that are close to me. There are two big investigations that I currently am in some way, shape, or form a part of. One of them is the Friends in the Sky documentary, which is the investigation at Mutilation Ranch in Colorado by my buddy Greg Feynman, UOR Investigations. He's been on the show a bunch of times from the very beginning as that story has unfolded. I think 6 or 7 times now. So that's one of the investigations that I'm, a part of. And there are updates to that investigation. We'll need to get Greg back on the program at some point. I might be visiting the property sometime in the very, very near future, so I'll have to update you about that as well, when and if that happens. The other investigation that I'm a part of is, it doesn't have a name, right? Like something like that, but it's the Florida investigation. And two people that are intrinsically a part of these investigations suffer from autoimmune disorders. And, Greg, my buddy Greg Feynman, had to retire disabled from the police force in 2008. He, with rheumatoid arthritis. Here's what's interesting now. I'm thinking about this. It actually becomes a little more unsettling the more I think about it out loud. Mama Sue Gutierrez, who is the psychic, part of the team on that investigation, integral part of that investigation. We love Mama Sue in this house. And I think anyone in any house loves Mama Sue. I mean, everybody, if you don't love Mama Sue, that says more about you than it does Mama Sue. So anyway, moving on. We adore Mama Sue over here. Is that clear? I hope so. So the point is, Mama Sue had received, through a message from Fitz, Friends in the Sky, that Greg had been given rheumatoid arthritis from Fitz. Now, there's reasons and things that go into it, and you can watch the documentary, and, when it comes out, probably sometime early next year or whenever it is, and you'll be able to, maybe understand that a little bit more. But it sounds like a big claim, doesn't it? Sounds like that's a pretty big thing to drop on somebody, because Mama Sue then had to call Greg and inform him of the information she had been given. Imagine having that conversation, right? So that's where we are with that. Greg was given rheumatoid arthritis from Fitz. In Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, they talk about this infectious model, or this infectious agent model, where people who didn't even go to the property, Skinwalker Ranch, are coming down with autoimmune disorders. And if you know me, I've been big on for years now, trying to figure out somehow, with my limited resources and, quite frankly, intellect, the connection between autoimmune disorders and heightened psychic, supernatural, paranormal abilities. Because there is, make no mistake about it, there definitely seems to be a connection. And I wholeheartedly believe that there is a direct link in some way, even though I am unable to, I guess, materialistically or scientifically prove it at this point. To me, there is so much circumstantial evidence that it is a mountain. Now, understanding that people close to someone who went to Skinwalker Ranch now can be befallen with these autoimmune disorders. What does that even mean? Why is that happening? Sorry, that was me getting too excited with my elbows on the table. Get your elbows off the table. Don't be so rude. Okay, Columbo, I won't. Hey, just one more thing. Do you think that maybe it's rude to have your elbows on the table when you eat? You know what? I don't get into like the Miss Manners books. And, I got to use a salad fork. I got to use a dinner fork. I got to use a dessert fork. And they're all different sizes and shapes and things like that or whatever. So I don't really care if someone eats with their elbows on the table. That's just an idea of this formality to try for human beings to try to pretend like we're not rolling around in our own shit, which, by the way, we still are clearly rolling around in our own feces in just different ways, even though we think we're so much better than the beasts of the wild, which we're not. We're not better than the beasts of the wild. We never have been. We never will be. In fact, one might argue the opposite. And while I'm at it, might I just say how childish and foolish and just ridiculous it is that HOAs around the country are requiring people to have their grass cut at a certain length. It's like, how desperate are we to act like we are the dominators and in control of nature, when in fact we have zero control of nature. And we are powerless when faced with its immense strength and majesty. So we're like, oh, so like you're a better person. Like we judge like the value of how like proper someone is by how much they think they're controlling in nature. Does that make sense? It was like, oh, I keep nature controlled in my yard. Nature never gets longer than 2.5 inches in my yard because I am the dominator of nature. I am the dominator. The dominator? That's a fun word. I'll never remember it after today, but dominature is a fun word for the people who think that they can just put on leather and whip the grass in their yard into shape. Guess what? That grass is going to keep growing long after you're dead, and it'll probably use your dead body as fuel. So how does that feel, dominature? How does that feel? What is happening? We went on quite a rant, and I'd have to say it's because Nigel's not here. I don't even know how that started. But God, am I glad it did. I needed to get that off my chest. I almost said chesticles. I was talking about autoimmune disorders. We were actually talking about something serious that people suffer greatly from. And I'm over here going on rants about dominators. So it is, at the very least, highly complex and confusing why those who are close to someone who visits Skinwalker Ranch would come down or be afflicted with autoimmune disorders suddenly. Even though, like Lukatsky and Kelleher and George Knapp are saying, there is no direct proof of the causation or correlation, but let us assume there is for a moment. And let us think about, I guess, non-locality or even bilocality. If, in fact, it is true, which, by the way, parenthetically, it is, that I can feel my grandpa die because my body is his body because of our DNA connection. and that there is truly no separation between me and you, and that connection just feels stronger when we are related to someone, I would argue, is probably the likely reason for this. So when I have DNA in my body that that understands that we have lost a part of ourself, quite literally. And that's when we know. And that's how we know that. And that manifests in different ways when people pass. So, if that is the case, right? Other people that we share space and energy with, I would argue for the very first time ever, because it's the first time I'm ever thinking of it, and I will gladly argue it blindly without even thinking it through, because in 3 minutes I could be like, what a fool I am for saying this 3 minutes ago, but I won't do that because I'm not a fool, because I'm always a fool. So if you just operate completely under the fool premise, you can't be a fool inside of a fool. You understand? I would argue that if you share space with someone, energetically, physically, psychically, emotionally, for example, Lakatsky and his coworker, who had the brother who had all the crazy UAP activity or UFO activity and orbs and things happening at their home, you have mixed the pot here. You have mixed your consciousnesses are now entangled in a greater way, in a more intimate way, in a more direct way. So therefore, these things that can come or somehow manifest from visiting a location that's a hot spot through this radiation poisoning that is also infectious, like paranormal radiation. Now, it doesn't, you don't need to be around the person in that moment it happens, right? Because your energies and your consciousness, both the consciousnesses, when I was a kid, we used to say, that used to be the word for your penis, like, oh, my ness. Ugh. So saying consciousnesses sounds like you have a consciousness. Like, and I think most men have proven that their nisses are not very conscious. Anyway, so what was I saying? So yeah, it's going to happen. Like, it's like the rat experiment. You know what I'm talking about. I don't even have to explain. And it talks about the non-locality, about the rats going through the maze, I believe it was in the United States, trying to teach these rats a new, very complicated maze to see if they could figure out how to get through it. These rats could not figure out this very highly complex maze. Then, and this experiment was being conducted in multiple places in the world. And rats in one of the locations, separated by thousands and thousands of miles, one of the rats figured it out. And then all the other rats watched that rat figure it out, and they figured it out, right? So they figured it out in one of these spots, and they hadn't figured it out anywhere else. Well, soon after, very, very quickly after, one of the rats figured it out. Boom. Now, these other rats knew how to do it. They just knew how to do it now all of a sudden. They're sharing knowledge through consciousness, information. I don't know. Travis Taylor would probably call it data packets being sent from your flesh brain to my flesh. I don't. He doesn't talk like that. It's actually a very good show, and it's entertaining, and I think it's pretty well made. So I don't know if you've ever watched Secrets of the Skinwalker Ranch, but it's an enjoyable program. And Beyond Skinwalker Ranch is also enjoyable. And the Beyond Skinwalker Ranch actually went to the Fitz location, the ranch, where we, for the documentary that'll be coming up. It's interesting because they didn't interview Greg at all. They didn't, that's not their dig. That's not their deal. You know what I mean? They don't involve other people in their things. TV shows don't usually do that because their people are the experts, and the only experts, they're the ones you should let, whatever. They might not even been aware that he was out there for years investigating there. It would have been a great resource to talk to him. Nonetheless, you can watch that episode on Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, which is also an interesting show. And I mean, they have a CIA guy and a reporter. Those are that's the model. You know what I mean? George Knapp's a reporter. Then you got Lakatsky and Kelleher, these these doctors, but they're spooks. They work for the government. There's the music. We got to do another commercial. We're going to be right back after this quick break. And don't forget, patrons, I love you. $3 a month, no commercials ever. You can be a free patron too. Check it out. And I'm coming back in hot while the tunes are still, the dots are still dotting around. I got to tell you, this is not remember how I told you I operate under the fool premise? I'm in fool mode 100% of the time. There's no question about that. I've had some pretty A+ rants on this 30-year bonus, so I'm glad we're doing this. I'll never remember them, but maybe someday someone will remind me of them. But maybe I should write down that dominature thing. Any hoodles. Paranonymous, the new podcast that I'm launching, where you can safely share experiences of high strangeness anonymously. I've been promoting the wrong phone number the whole time I've been doing it. I put out a reel on the Instagram. You can follow Paranonymous Pod on Instagram. I believe let me look it up right now on my phone, just so I'm not such a fool, not a bigger fool than maybe we're all accustomed to. Paranonymous.pod is the Instagram handle, so at paranonymous.pod. Paranonymous. Oh, that's not the email. I'm putting the wrong email. I gotta fix that now. Or maybe that is the email. Now I gotta check the email. I was getting ready to tell you the email, and I think I've written the email down wrong on the social media account. The email is paranonymouspodcast@gmail.com. It's not I wrote Paranonymous. What a dummy. Only Paranonymous. So paranonymouspodcast@gmail.com. You can email me, or you can call the 818-835-0563. 818-835-0563. You can text that number if you want to set up an anonymous interview. Or you can leave voicemails telling your story. Or you can email the story if you want me to read your story on the internet. Because on the internet? What's going to happen is there's going to be research and context given to whatever the phenomenon is that you experienced. And I'm not saying we're going to crack the case on. Oh, sorry, I'll stop fidgeting with things on the table. I'm not saying we're going to crack the case, but we are going to be. There's going to be a produced element to Paranonymous that me and Paranormal You doesn't have. So it's going to be a totally different type of podcast. So I'm excited about that. And excited about doing it. It's probably going to be a series. It's not going to probably be a every week for the rest of my life kind of thing. I'll probably do seasons of it. That's where I feel like that one's going. Is it's going to be, like 10 episode first season, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, so I was saying the wrong number that whole darn time. Hey, such is life. You know what I mean? So we were talking about the hitchhiker effect, essentially the infectious agent model, talking about autoimmune disorders, their connection to paranormal locations like Skinwalker Ranch. So, do any of the places I have visited? Oh, I didn't finish all that. My friend Carolyn has autoimmune problems and has for quite a long time. No surprise there. Here's something interesting as well. The rancher out at Mutilation Ranch has had all kinds of orb situations, light situations. And he's, by all accounts, I have no idea how old he is. If I had to guess, I would say in his 80s, and he would beat the hell out of any of us. He would beat us in an arm wrestling match. a bare knuckle boxing match. He's just, he's just a strong man. And so he seems, I don't know him really. So I can't say that he doesn't suffer from ailments or things like that. But to the best of my knowledge, no, he doesn't. But people at the heart of these locations do, or at least in the investigations of such. And even being given one, allegedly, by Fitz, by the ETs. What is that about? Are autoimmune disorders inherently anchored energetically in some kind of... it makes me wonder, how can they give someone that? There has to be some kind, and apparently it's when he's been abducted. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's not like he just woke up one day because they like up in the skies were just like, I think you have it now, so you do. I think it potentially might have been during one of his abduction events. Oh, and by the way, I'm running cord free on this, so if it's going to end abruptly, it's because I need to try to beat the battery dying on my laptop. But right now, I think it looks like we're doing okay. Please tell me that I'm recording right now. Okay, thank goodness I am. Because I'd hate to lose all that gold that we just had. So, no need to be so mean to yourself. Let's, maybe stop that. So have I experienced this phenomena? And because the Florida location, it's no probably secret to anyone who listens to the program, every kind of phenomena of the paranormal nature that you could imagine is occurring out there. And by the way, last night I made a video on Instagram in my car in the driveway in Dayton, Ohio, after returning from buying my car cooler. I wish it was a longer video, because as soon as I finished, the strangest noise, the strangest animal, like, kind of, I apologize, it was probably very loud, but it was like, but maybe it was an owl or something. It happened once. It was very loud. It was like right next to my car. I get out of my car. I stand up. I'm startled because I've never heard anything like this in all of my years in Ohio. And I hear it again. And it sounds like it's coming from about 20 feet away from me in the darkness, by the way. It's like, I don't know. It's after 10 o'clock at night. It's 10:30, so it's pretty dark. I like to go to places like the big box stores or whatever. I like to go there, within the last hour of them being open because they're so much less crowded. So I got back and it was pretty dark out, and that's when I heard it. And I go, hello? Just out of the driveway going, hello? And I didn't hear it again because I started recording. And so, of course, I didn't hear it again. And then this morning, I am awoken very clearly, distinctly, without question, by my father's voice saying, "Hey, Rye," which is how he hollers for me. He always says, "Hey, Rye," and he'll just kind of do it from a distance, like, "Hey, Rye," and that's how he gets me, gets my attention. I woke up to a "Hey, Rye." Here's the thing. They weren't here. So I don't know what's going on. And was I dreaming? Was I sleeping? When does a dream, when do you only dream in audio? Because I have no recollection of a visual dream occurring at that moment. There wasn't. I was woken up, like, when you get startled because you get woken up by something so loud. That's what it was. That's what it was. So, within about, 12 hours of one another, two weird auditory phenomena occurred. Now, those are not obviously tied into, that's just something I remembered, but those aren't tied into the autoimmune discussion and the infectious agent model. I have a hard time getting all those words in there when I say it, to say it properly. But do people close to me come down with autoimmune disorders or strange physical ailments after I have been researching, like let's say Florida, or I go out to Mutilation Ranch? To the best of my knowledge, the answer is no. I have not done any surveys, but to the best of my knowledge, and I sincerely hope the answer is no. I wouldn't feel good about that. Now, it's not like I don't know. How do you take responsibility for such a thing? Because it can't truly be proven, right? First of all, but how can that just not be a guilt-ridden life after that? Like if I go to Florida again here in about a month, if someone close to me gets rheumatoid arthritis, like right upon my return, I would feel awful about that. And I don't know if I'd ever be able to, really get over that. But to the best of my knowledge, nothing like that has occurred. Now, I know people who have been to Skinwalker Ranch, actually on the property. I'll have to talk to them. Our buddy, friend of the show, Matthew Jackson. Friend of the show, April Slaughter. Both of them have been on the property. That'd be an interesting question to ask. I wonder if they've experienced that phenomenon to any degree. Now, I have not, so that I am aware of, and that's not exactly something you want to investigate and then get a hit on, like figure out that it's actually true. That's quite the opposite. It's like if someone comes over looking for black mold, you're like, I hope you don't. I hope you leave, and I hope it's a very ho-hum kind of thing, and you leave out of here with no results. So, yeah. So any hoodles. We're going to do Book of Symbols because I just love to do this. And we're going to see. So we've been talking about lots of things here tonight, and let's see where the cookie crumbles. Even though I still don't know why that thing's a thing, but I keep saying it. Where are my glasses? Where are they? Sometimes, isn't it fun to be like an imaginary asshole sometimes? That was me yelling at like an imaginary assistant or something that I don't have. I was going to say I don't have an imaginary assistant. Obviously, I guess, is the answer to that. But with the response to that, because it wasn't a question, now was it? Stop being so judgy over here. So, but sometimes it's fun to be like an asshole, like in a funny way, as a joke to imaginary things like that. Like, where are they? Go get them. No, I don't want to hear excuses. This is me getting into my dad mode. No, I don't want to hear excuses. Go get them. Because I said so. God, I've never said that before in my life. I've never said because I said so. Oh, God. I just looked at the book's been open this whole time, but I haven't been looking at it. And it's an ominous entry. Gun. The pop artist Roy Lichtenstein focuses us at gunpoint to consider what his painting is aiming at. After all, the gun plays an ambivalent role in the history of human survival and human carnage. Hunting for food can be set alongside the extinction of entire animal species. The protection of home and hearth can be weighed against our staggering murder rates. From the ancient blunderbuss to the Remington rifle that helped to quote, win the West. From the lady's pearl-handed pistol that fits snugly into hand and handbag to the well-engineered AK-47, guns have emerged as astonishingly effective instruments and artfully crafted weapons of deadly power. Owing to a technical evolution that has ironically outpaced control of our impulse to fire it, the modern pistol has leapt far ahead of the projectile stone throwers and catapults that were its archaic ancestors, aptly illustrated by Lady Gunilda, which is obviously a piece of art. The medieval stone-throwing engine from which gun is thought to derive its name. Ooh. Lady Gunilda. That's where gun comes from. Interesting. That's where it's thought to, anyway. The power of the gun to easily terminate the conscious existence of another human being has placed gun ownership in the crosshairs of a debate over legislated gun control versus the psychological mastery of violence advocated by such ironic victims of fatal shootings as Mohandas Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. Like other weapons, the gun packs its own eros, embodied by the legendary gunslingers that stalk their victims across the old American West. Its automatic conferral of phallic one-upmanship in standoffs and its seemingly surefire self-protection make a gun's brass cartridges and intricate firing mechanisms especially seductive to men. Even a small boy understands what a gun does to its target long before he understands what death is. The pistol's fundamental maleness seems tacitly understood despite our campaign to shatter cultural constructs of gender, perhaps due to the widespread tradition of assigning hunting and fishing roles to males. Yet Annie Oakley was a markswoman par excellence, clipping the edge of a playing card or a dime tossed into the air, or even a cigarette held in her husband's lips 30 paces away. The gun's thunderous discharge made it the climax at folk festivals originally performed to expel demons. The purpose behind China's invention of fireworks out of black powder, a concoction of salt, pepper, sulfur, and charcoal that became known as gunpowder after it was perfected by Arabs and Europeans. After this, a handful of Spanish conquistadors on horseback, armed only with cumbersome harquebuses, is that how you say that? Harquebuses, could overwhelm the Incas, perhaps do more to shock effect than bullets. I think he's referencing Guns and Steel there. Anyway, Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond, which is that's a beast of a book to read, but can't recommend it enough. The mega business of global gun running, the pistol's explosive potency, and its easy slippage into the hands of intruders and gangsters explain how the gun evolved its modern psychological mystique, as our tense modern idioms bear witness. We live, quote, under the gun. We go gunning for our goals and figuratively hold a gun to someone's head. In both dreams and fantasies, the gun concentrates our fear of an unknown self or channels the aggression of violent complexes that threaten to annihilate our defenses, while bolstering the ego's capacity to master and depotentiate the constant menace of criminal violation. As our news weeklies report, assassination, suicide, and murders increasingly overshadow the gun's other functions and eclipse the inventive craftsmanship that turned countless guns into collector's items. Lichtenstein's in-our-face handgun robs us of time to contemplate such complex meanings, confronting us instead with the mind-racing frenzy of a curbside holdup, one where the victims may or may not live to tell their story through arresting artwork, depressing arcturial tables, and eyewitness accounts of the latest drive-by atrocity. The progressive mechanization of our innate primate violence sits balanced uneasily on a trigger. Only the counterweight of human consciousness can determine if it will sometime be pulled at the target behind our eyes. Now, early on it referenced something that did in fact tie in to today's episode. I feel a little somber after that, not going to lie to you. But hey, this is what's in the world, and the gun is an archetype for sure. It is. It stands for lots of things to people, and it has been infused with meaning in a very intense way in the last 20 years. Obama was going to take everybody's guns. What happened to that? What happened about all that? Oh, Clinton was going to take everybody's guns. Biden was going to take your guns. Harris might take your guns now. I mean, Democrats are very good at taking people's guns. Turns out, not the case. So, dominating nature, helping animals go extinct. The gun had a hand in that for sure, as it was referenced. And, that is one of those things where it's sad to think about and to dwell on it for extended period of time could make one feel hopeless, I suppose. But what we must remember is all things will pass. Change is inevitable. Will that change be good or bad? It depends on perspective. It depends on who you are and what you want. Change inherently can't be good or bad itself. But what will change and the changes that come 100% can be. What is good for the goose is good for the gander. Not always the case. I had a conversation earlier today with someone, and they described something, and I go, well, it sounded like what you described is the evils of capitalism. And they pushed back. Big time, as you might imagine. No, it's not what I was saying. Well, it sure sounded like it to me. When the entire world is hungry to optimize dollars. I don't know. I appreciate you listening to the show. I hope we, had some interesting, if not valuable, conversation here today. Okay, very good. What do you prioritize in life? Do you prioritize making as much money as you can, or trying to explore as much as possible the depths and the heights of what it is you truly love and truly believe? That is where I occupy. Would it be nice to have more money? You bet your sweet tush. But guess what? We're exploring over here, baby. Okay, so I hope to see you at the live show. Tour dates, RyanSingerComedy.com, Patreon.com/Ryan Singer. See you at a show. If not, I'll see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.